G'day and welcome to Ranger Touring. It's been 4 years now since I've owned this car. For this video I'm going to go through the things I like about it and the things I don't. I'm not going to focus on the modifications to the car, I'm going to focus straight up on the things that come out of the factory. The model is a Ford Ranger Wildtrak 2018 model that I picked up with 6 kilometers on the clock. It's a 3.2 litre 5-cylinder engine with 147 kilowatts and 470 newton meters of torque. Currently as it stands, it's got about 77,000 Ks on the clock over the case of 4 years. For that, I just really want to break that down. This car goes off-road probably more than the standard Ranger probably would compared to most people. Of that, it's probably done about 10,000 kilometers of towing. It's done about 4,000 Ks on dirt, gravel, corrugated roads. It's also done about 3,000 Ks in the sand. And probably about 3,000 Ks in the high country, where a lot of that was in low range as well. It's been bogged in mud. It's been bogged in sand. It's been stuck on rocks and required to winch up.
Okay, left hand down a bit. Yeah, good.
It's had a bit of a rough life. Got to keep that in mind, I guess, for when you're thinking about this car and the issues that I've had as a result. Not necessarily an issue with the car. I've had the front diff bushes replaced just due to wear and tear. So again, there is a cost of upkeep. That those diff bushes are pretty much cracked in two. So when they got replaced, so that's another thing I've had replaced, and again, it all costs money. So the servicing on it has been a bit, but again, that's sort of the price to play when you go off-roading. So we'll start with some of the issues that I've had with the vehicle. So firstly, the brakes. The brakes has probably been my kryptonite with this car. They've got a really spongy feel to them. I've had it taken into the shop a number of times and no one can really seem to tell me what's wrong with them. But I'll be honest with you, I don't have a lot of confidence in the brakes. So I've had problems with both the front and the rear brakes. The rear brakes are drums and the fronts are discs. At the moment, the big issue that I'm having with the fronts is that they're squeaking lots. What I've had issues with on the rear with the drums is the adjuster seizing. I think a lot of that was to do with just the debris and gross stuff that gets in there from the mud, the sand, water, etc. But I've had that seize on me, which meant that it wasn't adjusting the brake pressure, which obviously isn't very safe. With the fronts, I had the front right caliper seize up as well, so that had to get sent off to the shop and the pistons fixed in that. So again, it's not perfect. I definitely had some issues with the brakes. The problem is the brakes just aren't that great. They don't pull the car up very well. and the spongy feeling doesn't provide a lot of confidence. So that's definitely number one for my issues with the car. The second issue I've had with the car, and to be fair, this is a pretty small one, is, it's a ute, it's basic, and even for a wild track, which is the top spec model, you get a lot of those plastics in the cab, so you get a little bit of rattling, a little bit of rubbing, and then sometimes those clips that hold your floor and stuff down, if you nick them, the clips will break off and then the plastics move around. Small issue, it's cosmetic, it doesn't really impact how it performs or anything like that, but it's still kind of annoying when you're paying upwards of 60 grand for a car. I touched on this during the walk around of my car, but I've had to replace the crank battery on it. The starting battery is just not designed to handle the winch, and which is unfortunate. Again, it's a 4-wheel drive. People modify these all the time, so having that battery, it just couldn't handle the load and it ran dead quite quickly. So definitely got to upgrade the battery if you're going to winch off it. All right, this is my fourth issue and probably the biggest issue that I've had. At the time of making this video, this incident happened about a week ago. So after a trip to Byfield National Park, I took the car in to get it cleaned at one of those drive-through wash points where the water shoots up from underneath. I also did give a light hose out of the engine bay, and then driving down the road, probably about 800 meters from the car wash, the engine just turned off and the electric started going crazy on the screen in front of me. So what's actually happened is the sensors have gotten wet, and there's just been some water damage to them, and it was just tripping them. At the time, I didn't know that. I thought it could have been something to do with the transmission, because as soon as I put it in drive or reverse, it would just stall out completely. So I had to go on the back of a tow truck, took it to the local mechanic. They took all the plugs off, aired it out, and it started in 3 days' time. So that's a pretty big issue. That's made me a little bit concerned about going through water crossings, etc. But I'm pretty sure it was only from the water shooting up into the engine bay and getting on potentially the fuse box and some of that stuff. Because I've gone through water and it's come up over the bonnet before and I haven't had an issue. Just to keep in mind, that's a pretty big concern. So that's my major issue with the car. That didn't give me a lot of confidence, and we've got a big trip planned shortly, so I'm a bit nervous about it at the moment. All right, I've told you what I don't like about the vehicle, but I'll go into what I really love at the moment. So firstly, the hill descent control. When you chuck this thing in low range, its gearbox is really well suited for low range driving. In the high country, you could rely on the gears to hold the car really well. If it was a little bit steeper, you can then whack on hill descent control. You can actually control that by using the cruise control +- button on the steering wheel and just slowly descend down the hill. It's awesome, it's got a lot of control. I've used it in a Prado and a Land Cruiser 200 series before, and I thought it was really clunky and it seemed to just grab the brakes and not really ease the car down the hill, whereas the Ford Rangers is probably the best that I've experienced. I've kind of already touched on it again, but low range gearing. Low range gearing is awesome on this car. It's perfectly suited for going up steep tracks in the high country, but then as well when you've got those rocky climbs and you've got undulating terrain, I feel like you've got really good control through the accelerator, and I'm really happy with the gearbox itself. The next one is power. Again, out of the factory, it's got stacks of power. It's got everything you need. You do find when you're going up some hills, the car feels like it is working a little bit when it's got the trailer on the back, but without the trailer and just for an actual vehicle itself, it's got plenty of juice when you need it. For towing, it's still got enough. I've towed it trailers through the high country before, and through some soft sand, etc. I took it on the Fraser Island, never had an issue for power, so really can't complain about it for that. The next one's the tech pack. So again, being the wild track, I know a lot of the time you can go, I don't really need the fancy stuff, but I mean that thing's full of technology. At the time when I got it, it had Apple CarPlay, which was excellent. It's a perfect system, so much better than the standard stuff that comes with the car. The digital speedos, the alerts, the safety features, everything like that is just awesome on the car. Another one that's seems kind of redundant, but is heated seats. When I was in Victoria, perfect. High country in the morning, whack your seat warmer on, it was perfect. And that sort of plays into the comfort and feel of the car. It's a very homely cabin. You feel comfortable driving the car. It's got that beautiful electric steering. and I really enjoy that. One of the other things I love about the car is the 230 watt plug in the back. So when the car's on, I can charge basic equipment like laptops, drill batteries, etc. So that means you can really open up your camping setup to those 240 appliances. It's really good. When I go camping, I can take Milwaukee lights, drills, chainsaws, etc. because I know I can charge it up in the car. I can charge with my drone batteries, GoPros, etc. It's really good. So that 230 watt plug in the back, excellent. And if you've got kids, it's another thing to use there potentially. So the last thing that makes the Ranger stand out among the crowd, I guess, from some of the other 4 drives is the fact that it comes with the diff lock. The thing that makes the Ranger though stand out is that when you engage the diff lock and you're in low range, it still keeps traction control on the front axle, so you end up getting a lot of traction off-road with that diff lock on. This isn't necessarily a quarrel with the car, but when I've wanted to get things fixed under warranty, so again those sort of plastics, those rubbing noises that I talked about earlier, and some small things like getting my brakes checked, etc. I've found that it's really dependent on the Ford that you go to. I won't name specific Ford dealers, but I've moved around the country a fair bit at the moment, and I've taken it to a number of different Ford dealers in different states, and I've had really varying results in how much stuff they fixed, whether they charge me for those things that could be considered wear and tear, or those that probably felt under the warranty category. There was a lot of stuff where, depending on the Ford dealer you went to, varied the experience that you'd have. I've paid up to $1,800 for services that were meant to be fixed priced at $500, but I've also paid the fixed price and had some stuff fixed that potentially was warranty, potentially wasn't. So again, really varied experience. So just keep that in mind when you go to a Ford dealer. So I guess the question is, would I buy another one? Probably, yeah, I would. I've really enjoyed the car, and for what it's gone through, 77,000 going on 80,000 Ks of pretty tough wheeling. It's performed really well, and when I go out, and I have confidence that it's going to come home with me. I think it's a really good platform. It's got great towing capacity out of the box. It's got good power. I mean, the 3.2 litre engine is excellent. I haven't driven the 2 litre, to be fair, but from watching a lot of reviews, it seems to be the less highly strung engine. So I think the 3.2 is a good car if you can find one. I know there's inherent issues with the transmission, which do need to be sorted, but I believe by getting it transmission cooler, you can sort that problem. I haven't, touch wood, haven't had an issue with that yet. Am I going to upgrade from the Ford Ranger, the 2018 model that I've got? Currently, no. The only things that really appeal to me are like a 200 or a 300 series Land Cruiser, but firstly, massive on the budget. Apart from that, the dual cab segment hasn't really done anything drastically new that makes you want to give this one up immediately and start from scratch again. The new Ford Ranger is coming out this year, so I guess I'll have a look at that when it comes out, but I think I'm going to run this one for a long while longer. The thing is, you don't make your money back when it comes to 4-drive modifications. There's been about $20,000 spent on modifications on this vehicle. If I was to sell it, I'm not going to make that money back, and I'd have to start from scratch on a new Ford Ranger. For now, I'm not going to bother about it. Keep driving this thing. It's always getting me home. Hope you enjoyed that video. Tune in for more Ranger touring content. Please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Thanks again.